Dear students, I wish to welcome you all to our lecture series on geography. Today's topic is population programs and policies in India. India's population passed the 1 billion mark in 2000. Its population is likely to pass China's as the world's largest within 20 years. A population is a summation of all the organisms of the same group or species which live in the same geographical area and have the capability of interbreeding. Rapid growth of population in India has become a matter of concern for one and all. At the beginning of this century, India's population stood at 23.8 crores, a fourfold increase in India's population which stood at 84.3 crores. The present century has witnessed that it reached more than 120 crores. Growing population is not an issue of numbers alone, but it is an issue which is closely related and has implications for socio-economic development, environment and quality of life of our citizens. In order to slow down population growth and accelerate the process of improving the quality of life of our citizens, multi-dimensional initiatives are being taken. So, in this session, let us discuss about some policies and programs regarding the population growth under the following headings. Concept of population policy, evolution of India's population policy, National Population Policy of India, important features of population policy, programs needed to address population. To start the discussion, first we should look at the concept of population policy. A policy is defined as a statement of important goals accompanied by a specified set of means to achieve them. A well elaborated set of means constitutes a program. A good policy has to be based on a sound theory linking the means with the ends, although on social issues it is often likely to involve an element of judgment about the connection between inputs and outcomes or the process. The size of the population, its structure, composition and growth rate as well as the migration pattern are closely influenced by the population policy of the respective government. Therefore, the three determinants of population change, birth rate, death rate and migration to or from a territorial unit have naturally received explicit or implicit attention from rulers or governments since the day of Kautilya. Population policy is made by national governments in an effort to either limit or expand the number of people in their country. For countries with high population growth rates, population policy generally includes programs to encourage family planning, birth spacing and delaying the birth of a woman's first child. In the 1990s, many countries began to include improvements in women's reproductive health as part of their population policies. The national family planning programs begun in various African countries are good examples of this aspect. Countries with very low or negative population growth rates have sometimes encouraged families to have more children through policies such as extended maternity leave with pay and family support payments. Population policy can also include measures to increase or decrease immigration. Each country has its own population policy. These policies range from encouragement of high fertility to varying degrees of discouragement. Some of the developing countries follow the policy of slow growth, also known as the policy of pronatalism. The population policies of different countries have been formulated to achieve either of the following objectives: to reduce the population growth rate not necessarily to zero, to stabilize the population by achieving a zero population growth rate, and to achieve a negative rate of growth with a view to reduce the size of population. Now, we shall move on to the next heading, that is evolution of India's population policy. It is important to reflect on the background of the first step taken by the Planning Commission during 1951 to 52. Unlike in the case of several other developing countries, the India concerned about the relatively high level of fertility or the number of children born to Indian women rather than the rate of population growth that reflected a genuine desire to improve the living standards of the people. It was not imposed from abroad. The Indian leadership has been exposed to the development in the Western countries and did not want India to lag behind. During the 1920s and 1930s, some pioneers had set up family planning clinics in Pune and Bangalore. In the 1940s, the Bohr Committee on Health Survey and Development and the Subcommittee on Population set up by the National Planning Committee favored the involvement of the government in the promotion of family planning. Not surprisingly, the memorandum submitted by the Family Planning Association of India set up in 1949 under the presidency of Lady Dhanvantri Ramrao bring out a favourable response from the Planning Commission. The Health Panel, chaired by Health Minister Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, had appointed a subcommittee on population growth and family planning. R.A. Gopalswamy, the Census Commissioner in charge of the first census of independent India, was its convener. There were differences of opinion. The Health Minister insisted that no contraceptives should be used. But Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru supported a more flexible approach and also the idea of state action to promote family planning. It was because of the report of this subcommittee that in 1952, India became the first developing country in the world to adopt a policy of governmental efforts to promote a reduction in the number of children born to Indian couples. Simultaneously, there was considerable effort to initiate various programs to lower the level of mortality and malnutrition and to raise life expectancy at birth from the then low value of around 32 years. Thus, the early concept of population policy covered both mortality and fertility and did not exclusively focus on fertility. There was also recognition of the need to improve the quality of life of the people by lowering the burden of disease or mortality, promoting universal primary education and eradicating illiteracy, exploitation and poverty. Population Foundation of India is a national non-government organization at the head of policy advocacy and research on population issues in the country. PFI was established in 1970 by a group of socially dedicated industrialists led by Mr. J.R.D. Tata and Dr. Bharat Ram. It has kept pace with the times, facing new challenges and changing perspectives through periodic reviews of its objectives, processes and achievements to make itself relevant to the people to serve. PFI collaborates with central, state and local government institutions for effective policy formulation and planning. It supports governmental and non-governmental organizations in programs that focus on reproductive and child health, family planning, adolescent reproductive and sexual health, HIV or AIDS and urban health. The foundation also works with corporate organization as part of their corporate social responsibility. PFI reaches out to the underserved and the unserved areas in 20 states. So next, we shall move on to the major policy programs regarding population in India. National Population Policy of India. It was long before procuring our independence even that several discussion benches saw the onset of population policy. Much before independence, in the year 1938, only a subcommittee on population was set up by the National Planning Committee. The National Planning Committee passed a resolution in 1940 that stated the need for the state to adopt family planning and welfare policies in order to bring about a harmonious order of social economy. The resolution also stressed the need of limitation of children. April 1951 recorded further enhancement in this policy formulation as the first 5-year plan labelled for an overpopulation policy and considered it was because in the plan family planning was treated as a part of the health program and received 100% funding from the central government. This national population policy was further modified and re-announced in 1977. In this new policy, what was reinforced was education and health. The later component of the reformulated policy included the general as well as maternal and child health. A voluntary family planning was also introduced hereon. This also saw the change of the phrase from family planning to family welfare program that is maintained till date. It is estimated that half of the productivity of the Earth's biosystem has been diverted to human use with simultaneous depletion of our natural resources and impairment of the capacity of life supporting ecosystems. Current size and continuing growth of the world's population adds to this environmental burden and especially in places where growth is proceeding rapidly will undermine the prospects for socio-economic development. The United Nations medium variant population projection suggests that between 2008 and 2050, the world will have to accommodate 2.3 billion additional people. This growth, along with disparately needed advances in living standards for nearly 3 billion people in poverty, will increase pressures on the environment. The long-term objective is to achieve a stable population by 2045 at a level consistent with the requirements of sustainable economic growth, social development and environmental protection. The immediate objective of the policy is to address the unmet needs for contraception, healthcare infrastructure and health workers, and to provide integrated service delivery for basic reproductive and child health care. The medium term objective is to bring the total fertility rate to replacement level by 2010 through vigorous implementation of intersectoral operation strategies. TFR is the average number of children each woman would have in her lifetime. Now, let us know about some important features of population policy. The following are some of the important features of population policy in India. First one, reducing death rate. Mortality is an undesirable characteristic of Indian population policy. Next, reducing of birth rate. The government has been making effort to reduce birth rate to reduce the growth rate of population. Measures adopted for the purpose include popularizing sterilization, increasing the use of different birth control devices, spread of education among rural people, introduction of poverty alleviation program, raising the minimum age of marriage and so on. Third one is the voluntary approach. The population policy adopted by our country is based on voluntary approach. No one is forced to adopt family planning measures. The policy aims at implementing family welfare measures with the help of voluntary cooperation of the people. Some of the measures taken by the government include emphasis on the nature of the program securing the cooperation of rural institutions and Panchayat Raj bodies. Next is wide approach. The population policy of India has adopted a wide and integrated approach for control of population growth. It includes various family welfare measures for improvement of the health of mothers and children and nutrition programs. Reproductive and child health approach was accepted in 1995. Next is population education. Steps have taken to educate children and adults, make them conscious about the problem of population explosion and to realize the need of population control. Family welfare advertisements are made in medias like TV, radio and also on newspapers. Next, incentives. In order to popularize the birth control measures under family welfare program, incentives are offered by the government to that individual couples or groups. These incentives are given in cash or by other means. National population policy follows to achieve following socio-demographic goals. That is, it has to address the unmet needs for basic reproductive and child health services, supplies and infrastructure, to make school education up to age 14 free and compulsory and reduce dropouts at primary and secondary school levels to below 20% for both boys and girls, to reduce infant mortality rate at below 30 per 1000 births, to reduce maternal mortality ratio to below 100 per 1 lakh births, to achieve universal immunization of children against all vaccines preventable diseases, to promote delayed marriage for girls not earlier than age of 18 and preferably after 20 years of age, to achieve 80% institutional deliveries and 100% deliveries by trained persons, to achieve universal access to information or counseling and services for fertility regulation and contraception with a wide basket of choices. To achieve 100% registration of births, deaths, marriages and pregnancy. To contain the spreading awareness about acquired immunodeficiency syndrome and promote greater integration between the management of reproductive tract infections and sexually transmitted infections and the National AIDS Control Organization. To prevent and control communicable diseases, integrate Indian systems of medicines in the provision of reproductive and child health services and in reaching out to households. To promote vigorously the small family norm to achieve replacement levels of TFR. To bring about convergence in implementation of related social sector programs so that family welfare becomes a people-centered program. Now, let me tell you what are the programs that must be taken to address the population growth. Programs needed to address population. Governments, non-government organizations and the general public must mobilize the political will and resources to address the twin challenges of rapid population growth and environmental degradation. Current action is inadequate. Environmental organization can make an important contribution to this cause by educating their memberships, policy makers and the public about the need for global action to improve access to family planning. Organizations concerned about the environment, population and or economic development should pool resources to build and mobilize a base of grassroots activists to advocate for improved family planning and reproductive health policies and programs and to help raise public awareness about the links between population and environment. An action agenda for developing countries should seek to implement the following. Improve the policy environment. Both donors and developing country governments place inappropriate policy restrictions on access to family planning information and services. These restrictions are particularly tedious for unmarried and adolescent women as well as those in need of abortion services. Next, strengthen family planning and related reproductive health services. In too many countries, these services are of low quality and underfunded, understaffed and lacking a broad variety of modern contraceptives or are entirely unavailable. In setting with a high prevalence of HIV or AIDS or where risk of HIV infection is high, family planning and AIDS program should be integrated. Next, increase human, commodity and financial resources. About $24 billion annually is needed for family planning and reproductive health programs in developing countries. Unfortunately, neither developing country governments nor donors are anywhere near meeting the financial needs of these programs. Of particular concern is the shortfall of contraceptive supplies to meet increasing demand. Their purchase from sources in developed countries can require developing countries to use scarce hard currency, making them difficult to obtain and appropriate for donors to provide as a part of their foreign assistance package. Equally important is the lack of trained personnel to manage and operate family planning and reproductive health programs. Next is the support safe abortion services. Worldwide, an estimated 42 million women have abortions each year. However, the legality of abortion varies by countries. 61% of women live in countries with liberal abortion laws, while 25% reside in a country where abortion is illegal or allowed only to save a woman's life, and 14% live in countries where abortion is only permitted to protect a woman's physical or mental health. There are some other policies to address population growth. One is international agreements. The 1994 International Conference on Population and Development set a broad agenda for population work. In addition to the provision of basic family planning and other reproductive health services, it emphasized poverty eradication, women's empowerment, gender equity, human rights, environmental protection, male responsibility in sexual behavior and family welfare, adolescent reproductive health and safe abortion. Another one is strengthening family planning deserves high priority. Reproductive health problems related to pregnancy, childbirth and sexually transmitted infections including HIV represent nearly 1/5 of the global burden of diseases. For women of reproductive age, such problems account for 1/3 of the disease burden and an even higher share among women in developing countries. Thus, it is easy to see why improving reproductive health, especially as it relates to avoiding accidental births, ensuring safe childbirth and HIV/AIDS prevention, treatment and care is intrinsically desirable. Family planning in particular is not only important to improving reproductive health, but also to enabling women and men to choose the number of timing of childbirth, a basic human right. Provision of family planning service is also the most direct intervention to slow population growth and assist environmental preservation. The impact of organized family planning programs on population growth is clear. Such programs were responsible for at least 40% of the fertility decline in developing countries from the 1960s through to the 1980s. At the same time, fewer pregnancies which are appropriately spaced result in less exposure to the risks associated with pregnancy and childbirth. Indeed, use of family planning could prevent at least 1/4 of maternal deaths in developing countries. So, we can summarize the topic. Human consumption is depleting the earth's natural resources and impairing the capacity of life supporting ecosystem. Humans have changed ecosystem more rapidly and extensively over the past 50 years than during any other period, primarily to meet increasing demands for food, fresh water, timber, fiber and fuel. Such consumption, together with world population increasing from 2.6 billion in 1950 to 6.8 billion in 2009, is major contributors to environmental damage. Strengthening family planning services is crucial to slowing population growth, now 78 million annually, and limiting population size to 9.2 billion by 2050. Otherwise, birth rates could remain unchanged and world population would grow to 11 billion. Of particular concern are the 80 million annual pregnancies that are unintended. More than 200 million women in developing countries prefer to delay their pregnancy or stop bearing children altogether. but rely on traditional, less effective methods of contraception or use of no methods because they lack access or face other barriers to using contraceptions. Family planning programs have a successful track record of reducing unintended pregnancies, thereby slowing population growth. So students, hope you all enjoyed the session. We will meet in the future episode. Till then, take care. Thank you.